It's time now to check in with our media partners from thevoiceofoc.org for an update on what's happening this week in Orange County government and politics.
And here to talk about issues in the news right now, we welcome the editor-in-chief for Voice of OC, Norberto Santana. Hi, Norberto.
And Greg, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hey, folks are talking about the San Onofre nuclear generating station, also known as SONGS, right? And they're talking about turning it back on. It's been offline for a while, and that's bringing out some people on both sides of the aisle. Can you tell us about that meeting?
Sure. National nuclear regulatory officials held a packed hearing in Dana Point earlier this week where the debate got pretty hot and heavy. Earlier last week, Senator Barbara Boxer put out a letter essentially accusing Southern California Edison of installing changes at the plant that caused radiation leaks, and they're doing so knowingly. Local officials have begun to join Boxer's call for an intense investigation. San Diego Mayor Bob Fildner sent a representative to the hearing. Here's what his representative had to say to the officials.
I urge you not to authorize the restart of SONGS until both a full license amendment hearing has been conducted by the NRC and the CPUC finishes its investigation.
Southern California Edison officials have told nuclear regulatory officials that they would never knowingly do changes to the plant that would make people unsafe. Here's what they told them in front of the hearing.
I understood your question to be, is it our first priority, the safety of you and the people that live in these communities? And I will tell you, at 2 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it absolutely is.
However, there is a report reportedly released by Mitsubishi Industries which raises some really troubling questions about what the energy giant may have known about these changes that they put in that caused these generators to leak. Here's a little bit about that debate from the hearing as well.
Why is it that the public is not allowed to see that document? I mean, that undermines our credibility with you, or vice versa.
The report contains proprietary information, and there are no plans to make it public.
Could the NRC redact that proprietary information and just release the portions that are not proprietary?
I don't know.
The NRC releases redacted proprietary documents all the time. That document should be released immediately.
Once again, that issue will heat up again later this month at the Public Utilities Commission, which will take up the broader question of how do we make up the power from this nuclear power plant, which is about 20% of the power in Southern California, about 1.5 million homes.
Well, quickly, because we're short on time, but if the best case scenario comes about, how soon could we have SONGS back up?
Well, some of the NRC has said that they expect to finish their inquiry by about April. However, state electricity estimates don't, frankly, take San Onofre into account at all. And again, the Public Utilities Commission will take the issue up later this month at a meeting in all places in Costa Mesa to talk about, frankly, who pays for it. It's about $1 billion that's in play, and the question is whether Southern California Edison eats it or whether the taxpayers get to pay for it.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the very popular Green Fair that had been going on for, I believe it had happened 3 different times. The Orange County Board of Supervisors unanimously terminated the event earlier this month. What is behind that?
Apparently, there are allegations of a cover-up. This was an event where lots of different green energy companies could show up at the county and talk to procurement officials. However, apparently it just went off the tracks. They were using thousands of hours of staff time, and also there was a big question about vendor contributions and where they went. They can't seem to be accounted for. When county supervisors heard about an internal audit investigation into the event this week, they quickly just pulled the plug.
So it turns out that the county wanted to introduce itself again to vendors, saying, look, we'll buy stuff from you to prove that we're green, but the whole act of introducing themselves and throwing these events turned out to be more expensive than folks who were wanting to support green events could swallow, right?
Again, these types of events get messy with lots of vendors running around wanting to talk to procurement officials and lots of staff time being eaten up by using it. It just kind of went, it got loose. Now, at the same time, staff tried to quietly just say, you know, this thing has turned so well that maybe we should have somebody from the outside take it on. That drew the ire of union officials that basically came out to the supervisors meeting and called them all out and said, listen, they are the ones that highlighted the public to the fact that this internal investigation was ongoing, and they still have deep concerns about where all the money went.
Yeah, so what's the next step with that? Are we going to actually find out what happened to all the money?
Well, we'll see. The internal audit investigation is continuing. However, at this point, the green fare has been killed.
Because it's expensive to be green.
Yes, it is. All right, let's talk very briefly about the Anaheim streetcar project.
Right.
Explain a little bit about what that is.
Another project that has to do with a lot of how your tax dollars are being utilized. There's a plan in Anaheim to spend $100 million a mile for about 3 miles to create a very elaborate streetcar that goes from the public transit station there in the midst of Anaheim all the way to Disneyland. That, however, has triggered with the release of several emails that raise questions about how local officials may be gaming federal transportation dollars. You've got county supervisors like Todd Spitzer, John Morlock, Irvine City Council member Jeff Lalloway. They all want a special presentation to see exactly why those transportation dollars are being spent on something like a streetcar project when at the very time OCTA and other agencies are having to cut bus service or increase bus fares.
And for those mathematically challenged, that's $300 million.
Okay, let's move on to talk about Paul Walters. What was his severance package? Do we know?
We do. This week, the Santa Ana City Council finally released the severance package given to their fired city manager, Paul Walters. His exit will cost taxpayers in that city $260,000. They'll also, which is one of the weirdest golden parachutes I've ever seen, they'll be naming the police building after him as well. And in another sort of sleight of hand, they'll be tinkering with his pension, allowing him to purchase additional credits on his pension, something that frankly got San Diego officials in a lot of trouble several years ago.
What's up with the building?
Yeah, I've never heard of that in a golden parachute for an ousted city manager. Now, Mr. Walters did work at the, he was the police chief there for, I think, about 30 years. And apparently this must have meant a lot to him to have the building named after him. But again, I've never seen that included in the severance agreement.
All right, very good, Norberto. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me, guys.